has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sergeant Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana show boy, Africa's great song, Sergeant Dr. Nkrumah.
It's a wonderful Saturday morning here in the studios of Pan-African Television, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Mother of All Talk Shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. We are live, of course, the main platform, Pan-African Television. We are also live on Facebook, Pan-African Television, still the same name. You can locate us and watch us. We are also live on YouTube with the same name, Pan-African Television, so you can get to watch us on 3 different platforms. For Pan-African Television alone, we are live on another television station in the Volta region, Volta 1 TV, and we are live on Global FM, also in Ho. We are live on several other affiliates across the country. Radio Kitao in Saboba is one of the affiliates that have joined us, and also we have Bewa Radio in Yende. We also have Matamo Radio in Tamale. We have Diamond FM in Tamale. We have Nuasi Radio in Ketekracha, among the several other radio stations that are picking us currently. If you are joining us on any of them, a big thank you for choosing this platform. My name is Sena, Nombo, and I welcome you to the Mother of All Talk Shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. And of course, today we'll spend some time talking about the major issues that made the news. And like I indicated to you, we will not stop talking about COVID until we see some strong action and we see some results. Now, this week, the WHO has listed Ghana as one of the countries that's struggling to contain the spread of the virus. One of the African countries struggling to contain the spread of the virus. Of course, it gave some plaudits to some African countries they believed were doing better in terms of containing the virus. So it means that we are not doing so well. But government has also been talking about vaccines and their rollout plan, and they did that yesterday. We spent some time talking about COVID, and of course the issue of the emergence of Ebola at this time in Guinea claimed a couple of lives. And then we are afraid it may infiltrate the country. If we have to do with Ebola and COVID at the same time, then we are in for very tough times. So it's one of the health alerts that have been issued by the Ghana Health Service. We'll be talking about that, and we'll talk about vetting of the ministerial nominees. Still ongoing. We're talking about the fallouts from that particular process. And then we'll spend some time on the election petition if we still have time to do so. I'm joined in the studio this morning, of course. Always a pleasure to have him, Mr. Kwesi Prajina, is managing editor of the Insight newspaper. It was wonderful to have him every morning on Saturdays to share his views with us. We are joined also today by Margaret Tanse Mago, who is the immediate past deputy spokesperson for the 2020 presidential campaign of the National Democratic Congress. And sitting right beside me is Dr. Clement Apaku. It's been like close to 2 years since we last had him on the platform. He is member of parliament for Bosa South. He was until recently, the committees have not been reconstituted yet, the deputy ranking member on the Education Select Committee of Parliament. So he's joining us, and we are expecting to be joined by Ibrahim Cisse, who is from the New Patriotic Party, a private legal practitioner, is deputy secretary of the NPP in Clote Colley. He will be joining us later on the show to also share his views on the issues we'll be discussing. Thank you very much for choosing the platform, and it's a pleasure always having you. But very importantly, share your thoughts with us as we go along. There are a couple of ways you can do that. We have a WhatsApp and text message line you can use to send your messages, your views as we discuss the issues we are discussing today. We also have our Facebook comment section, the Facebook comment section. You can use that to also share your views. I'll be reading them as we go along in the show. Once again, welcome. So we'll start the discussion with COVID, of course, because it's the major issue that is affecting. I've always said that if we have life, then everything else we can talk about. But until we get life, everything else is secondary. I wanted to read to you the story of government. This one it was yesterday. It says government assures safe and effective vaccines as it rolls out plans to vaccinate 20 million citizens. And it says government has given assurances that the procured COVID-19 vaccines have an impressive efficacy rate and is completely protective against severe cases of the virus in the country. This follows last December's announcement by President Akufo-Addo that preparations are afoot to secure COVID-19 vaccines for the country. Officially announced a rollout plan for the vaccine at the stakeholder engagement forum on Friday. The Minister for Information designate, Kojo Ponkoma, explained that the discussions have been ongoing in the background with several meetings with industry experts to settle on a comprehensive rollout plan for vaccines. And there are several codes that are attributed to him. So clearly, a plan is being put across. So we are talking about COVID within the circumstances of the new developments that we have been hearing of this week. I start with Dr. Clementa Park. Doc, good morning. Wonderful to have you.
Yes, good morning, Sena. And let me say, it's always a pleasure to be on ALHAJI and ALHAJI. Many of us fine-tuned our political skills and interest in public discourse on this platform. As I was indicating earlier, the Freedom Center was my permanent abode when I was still at the university, leading advocacy for governance and justice. And it looks like a lot of the work I did then is playing out today and being relevant. But we'll come to that another day. But it's only fair that I acknowledge Sena Pratt, my master. And I must let him know that his good friend, my father, John Azundem, who he got to know through my late uncle, Honorable Akwiri, is a regular of this program and is watching with his retired wife, my mother, that he calls his girlfriend, in their humble abode in Bolgatanga. He says I should extend his compliments. He wants to know why your hair has not grayed as much as his has. And I tell him it's because you remain active. He ought to do the same. My good sister, Margaret here, we've been seeing each other in dispatches, but I think today is the first time that we are appearing on the same platform. And I must again commend you for, keeping this institutionalized program alive. It has not been easy, given the conditions, but it is good to know that almost at every time there is somebody willing, able, and capable of stepping in to keep it going. Because the people must know the truth about what is going on in terms of the people who are entrusted with their power to oversee their well-being and their progress and our collective well-being as a nation. You made mention of the issue of COVID. At this point, I would say that we are in a crisis situation. I don't believe many people have still come to terms with how badly the situation has been mismanaged to get us to where we are. And, viewers and listeners don't have to take it from me. You quoted vividly an external source, a known international organization, practically indicting us, saying that because we have not done well in managing the situation, we have fallen below expectation. And it is not only what you read, but I also remember that probably about 2 or so weeks ago, the American embassy had issued an alert, not only to Americans who were seeking to travel to Ghana, but had even suspended visa application sessions as a result of what they perceived and what many of us believe has been an upsurge in the infection rates that we are seeing vis-a-vis the numbers. And anyone who knows global politics and you understand the weight of global institutions when the Center for Disease Control, an American public health institution, warns and identifies a particular country, tagging it as having become, if you like, a hotbed of infections, then we have every reason to worry. So, Sena, quite honestly, many of us have followed the figures, and as of yesterday, the reports were that the active cases were in excess of 7,000, and that even within our schools, which only reopened on the 15th of January to date, recorded cases 556, being the cumulative total from some 139 schools. That is just between 15th of January to date. And anyone who knows the protocols, although it was announced yesterday, that means that the results as of yesterday must be at least a week older. So which will mean that the week today, Saturday, going to last week, Saturday, in terms of the number of infections and even deaths, cannot yet be quantified. But you see, we cannot discuss this issue without looking at perhaps how it came to be and how those who were entrusted with the mandate to arrest it, the resources that were made available to them to do so, and how they made the decisions that they made could have gotten us here. This did not just happen overnight. And indeed, the disease itself did not drop from the other planets like Mars or Pluto. The disease came through vectors, in this case, human subjects. I don't want to remind Ghanaians that it was just about barely a year ago, we are getting to March, that we recorded the first case. And that came as a result of unofficial travel out of the country against wise counsel. Well, indeed, the disease had come up and was spreading across the globe. And some of those countries that the official travel by the president and his entourage were slated to travel to had already reported such cases. The calls by us in the minority at the time were not heeded to. And I remember very vividly that upon arrival by the president and his entourage, they didn't even make, if you like, a stopover in Accra. Straight away, they went to the capital of the Ashanti region to, if you like, superintend over the Independence Day celebration. It was soon after that that we started recording cases in this country. Some processes and procedures, protocols were put in place. But then again, a lot of questions were raised about the efficacy and the fact that those who even put in place those protocols and procedures and, if you like, guidelines were in themselves not respecting what they expected the citizens to do in protecting ourselves. And the examples are abound. We have examples of ministers of state who were diagnosed as being positive and yet chose not to self-isolate and going out and mingling with citizens. And yet at the same time, men and women of God who had committed similar offenses were, made to face the full sanctions of the law, and some of them were even given jail time. You remember very well, there was the advocacy that because of the nature of this virus, and by virtue of the fact that it thrives on person-to-person contact, and therefore there was a need for even state program activities to be put on hold. Powers that be chose to give a deaf ear to that. So we had the registration process, a review of voters register, and what have you. It is important to give the background. But let's fast forward to the current situation where we are now told by the scientists and medical experts that we have some mutated varieties, if you like, new variants, the UK variant. So didn't we put in place mechanisms at the airport, purportedly, to ensure that we don't get a second importation of the virus into the country after the earlier importation, which occurred by virtue of a refusal to listen to wise counsel had occurred? Is it not the case that a company which even today we are finding difficulties to ascertain its mandate, the entities behind it, its expertise, its track record, came to be at the airport purportedly to ensure that this doesn't happen? So how did the UK variant find its way into Ghana? Clearly, it wasn't your grandfather or my uncle from my village of Dominga. He has never traveled. He's not going anywhere. How did it get in? In spite of all the so-called arrangements that we were told had been put in place. So when I speak about official complicity, the lack of sincerity, or if you like, as some have said, the deliberate attempt to profit from this affliction or pandemic, those thoughts cannot be dismissed because it simply does not make sense. Because if we had gone by what we were told was going to be the case, we shouldn't be today the reference or the poster boy of a country that has poorly managed itself in as far as this pandemic is concerned. Now we will come to talk about the vetting, and I would raise the same issue about frontiers and the matters around frontiers and I am not aware syndrome that has suddenly engulfed persons that we know are aware, which in itself raises a number of questions. But you see, my particular interest has to do with the schools in speaking about this. Because yesterday's rollout of the vaccination program, well and good, mentioned, if you like, people in certain segments of society who are going to be initial beneficiaries of the virus. We were told yesterday that it was going to be about some 20 million Ghanaians who are expected in the first phase to be vaccinated. They spoke about frontline health workers, members of the security agencies, media, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, educators, teachers, students in secondary and tertiary institutions, and what have you. Well and good. But Sena, did we truly put in place the right protocols, put in place the right mechanisms to ensure that schools were safe before reopening schools? And the answer is no. I have had cause to complain about this, to write about it, and even to challenge the Director General of the GES to give us the details of what he claimed had been done. If you remember very vividly, before schools reopened, the President again had addressed the nation, my fellow Ghanaians. And he had made it very clear that adequate PPEs were in place. Plans had been made to link every school to a health facility. We even heard of the situation where a monitoring team had been put in place. Some teachers reportedly had been trained to help ensure that even when the virus reared its ugly head in any of our institutions, it will be quickly nipped in the bud. As I quoted to you earlier, between January 15th and yesterday, 556 students in 139 schools, which I don't believe. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe the statistics that the Ghana Health Service has been putting out. Because we know, look, we are in a global society, courtesy of technology. There's a lot that is going on that we are being informed officially. But those of us that the people trust and believe to advocate and champion their interests, we get these pieces of information. So even that number is very questionable. And that is why, in spite of what government itself has said and the figures that they have churned out, international and well-recognized and reputable agencies are pointing to Ghana as very dangerous in as far as the containment of this virus is concerned. It's the same thing in the institutions. A lot of institutional heads are afraid to speak out. They can't say it. So even when they get the reports of what is going on, they can't come public I have heard of parents who have tested positive, whose wards have tested positive, and are in schools. Some of them have been bold enough to inform school authorities. We have heard of some of them even on radio and TV. And you would think that by now, government through the GES and the Ghana Health Authority should have taken up and gone to those schools to initiate the needed action as a way of containing the spread of the virus. They are not doing it. We are sitting on a time bomb. The situation is bad. Many of us here in this studio, I would speak for myself, I know my senior brother, Kwesi Pratt, my sister, we know people who have died of this illness as a result of the insincerity. And of course, we can blame the authorities. We also have a role to play as citizens. Yes, nobody is denying that. But as the stewards of state machinery, they have a higher responsibility to ensure that the right things are done. How do you expect a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, even a 14-year-old to be able to practice physical and social distancing when the classroom is housing 80 pupils or students? You tell me. Tell me. I am a member of parliament. Parliament today is not in session because COVID has found its way into the corridors of parliament. And we had every single facility available. Every single protocol, every single PPE was available. We are adults. And yet, 17 of our colleagues, as of before we were sent home, and a whooping 151 members of staff had it. I had my office. My colleagues had their own offices. And now you tell me that you have a classroom containing 80 students. To respect the protocol. The same classroom where the students don't even have nose mask. The same classroom where the students don't have access to sanitizers. I mean, why are we doing this to ourselves? Were resources not voted massively to ensure that all of these things happened? Didn't the president assure us that everything was in place to ensure that when schools reopened, our wards would be safe? And what is even so painful is that we have ways of addressing overcrowding in schools. Couldn't we have introduced the shift system? Is it that the nation is broke to the extent that we cannot compensate teachers for the extra work that they were to do? Couldn't we have erected temporary structures? Can't we procure additional furniture? And the issue of furniture is also another conduit by which the virus is spreading among our wards. I come from the northern part of the country. The issue of furniture is debilitating. You have a classroom with no furniture, so the students have to sit on the floor, sometimes lie on their bellies to write. How do you ensure social distancing? How do you ensure physical distancing? They are doing all of this in addition to the fact that they don't have the basic PPEs that the president and government has promised. So when these reports are coming from external institutions pointing to the fact that we are where we are, and I say we are in a crisis, it's justified, except those who want to play the ostrich, except those who don't have the requisite extended networks to know what is happening. I mean, there is no region in this country which has not recorded a COVID case. My own constituency, Butrasa, the rural constituency, 4. Yesterday, I spoke to the director of health services. Then he confirmed 4. This is Butrasa South. You can imagine what is happening in the urbanized, much more densely populated parts of this country. So we must be honest and truthful, and government ought to come clean to tell us exactly where the issues are, what the challenges are, so that together we can fashion a better way of addressing this matter. I was fortunate to have been appointed to the National Media Commission, I served there. I believe it was soon after I exited that my senior brother was also appointed to serve on the National Media Commission. And I would wish, and it's a proposal, that given where we have gotten to, the National Media Commission ought to hold a special dialogue session with the owners of the media houses. Thankfully, there's representation from across board. Primpark is there, and all of the recognized bodies are there, GIJ, Teacher Union, whatever, we all have representation. And I would suggest that given that we are in a crisis situation, this is a war. It's a war, because it's about our survival. And we are dealing with a very intelligent virus, which has taken advantage of what makes us human. Because as human beings, we are social creatures. And it is through that social interaction that the virus thrives. And any time we get close to identifying its proper nature, it mutates. So I would suggest that the National Media Commission ought to work at putting together a program whereby every media house, both print, visual, and audio, can devote a minimum of 30 minutes to public education around this virus. It is not too much to do. I am even surprised that the Minister for Information designate, or the Minister himself, or even the presidency, has not come up with this. Because where we are requires that we must throw all resources at public education. Because it is our conduct, our consciousness of abiding by the protocol, which is very difficult because of our nature as social creatures. That is going to be the panacea. The vaccines will come. We will be vaccinated. But as you even know, the efficacy of the vaccines and their ability to deal with the mutated and mutating strands of this virus cannot yet be what? Ascertained. So at every point in time, the issue of observing the protocols is the best way to tackle the continuously spreading and mutating pandemic. But political office holders have the responsibility to lead by example and to apply our resources that we have entrusted upon them towards addressing this existential threat. And I think that point must be underscored.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Clement Park is Member of Parliament for Bosa South. I'm looking through the messages you've been sending. A lot of you are interested in LGBTQ and other issues. But we'll come and read those messages. But in the meantime, Young Matthew Floss is saying, a good morning to us. As Ghana has really lost the fight against COVID, proactiveness is the order of the day. Watching live from Abu Dhabi, he says, good morning to you. Muhammad Ali, okay, he says, Uncle, perhaps lack of gray hair is because he tells the fact that it is and leaves the rest to God. Okay, so Margot, let me come to you first.
Good morning. Sena, good morning, and good morning to your team, your cherished viewers, and your listeners, because I know you're on radio stations as well. And a special good morning to my seniors. I am humbled and privileged to be in their midst this morning, Senior Pratt and my neighbor, Dr. Clement. It's a good day, but life still goes on, and as you said, without life, there is nothing we can do. So you must first make sure you are living in an environment that you and your family and your friends will be secured, so that you can get the energy and even the zeal to move on with other things. COVID-19 is here with us. Currently, the new variants, I don't know whether it's still called COVID-19 or it's going to be COVID-20 or whatever. But as Doc said earlier, we all know how COVID-19 came to this country. And it is exactly a year ago, after the State of the Nations address, when the president traveled. And with all the negligence instead of being proactive, we rather wait to become reactive. Upon all that happened, Sena, now we are here with a new variant, the UK variant. And we are in Ghana. We understand that out of emergency and we were not in normal times. That is why a company was contracted without due processes. Because we had the president's cousins going around explaining why the frontier healthcare services did not go through the right process. And that we were not in normal times, so we didn't have time on our hand. So now, since we close our borders, any reasonable government will know that definitely you reopen your borders, that you open the airports. And even the airports reopening, there was an announcement, I think a month before the reopening. We didn't have all the time to do this proper arrangement and whatever. Now, we are not in normal times. You brought the people to come and work without due processes. It was strictly under the presidency. Yes, it's an emergency. COVID has become an economic crisis, not a health crisis anymore. So what happened? And we are faced with a new virus, which is foreign to us. Because this is a UK virus. So how did it become a Ghana challenge today? When we had people kept to test people before they enter this country. You hear the MPP communicators when you go on others broadcast media platform with them. Some were even blaming the immigration people. So now, every flight, you have the manifest. You know the number of people who are in the flight. If the company that they claim are working are up to tax, you should know the number of people who are coming into this country. You should have the manifest of the flight and make sure that everybody is tested. We've had a lot of stories, even some members of parliament of this government, claiming that their sons were telling them their friends came to the country, they didn't test, they had to pay bribe. And all those tapes are there. And now Ghanaians are suffering. Unfortunately, people that they are minding their business, going about their job to take care of their families, these new variants are taking them away out of someone's negligence. And we are so not serious, we don't care. Ministers go before vetting. Minister of Health is not aware about the company that is doing the test at the airport. Minister for Foreign Affairs is not aware. So an ambassador will be coming into this country, probably he will be malhandled or something, and the Minister for Foreign Affairs is not aware of the company. They don't know anything about the contract. Even the health minister insisted the right thing should be done before he insisted, and the tax would report directly to the president. This is a clear failure on the side of the president and its apparatchiks. See, now this thing is claiming lives. It's so dangerous. The COVID-19 alone, we were not able to manage it. And now we have sat down upon all that they were taking at the airport. We have another variant, which is foreign again. Why does this government major in minors? Why? Why is this government not proactive at all? All they are interested is money. If the health minister is not aware of the company, because this variant was not with us. Sena, it was imported into this country. And you are taking $150 at the airport for testing. COVID-19, that is a virus that is like a war, as my brother said, that we must fight. It has become connection man. They were doing business with COVID-19. That it is, to understand that it is the president that collects the money from the airport. Because if the Minister for Health is not aware, Attorney General was not even part of he said he had a lot of things, so some of the things might escape him or something. Foreign Affairs is not aware, and it's really under the presidency. What were they doing? Making money for family and friends as usual, with COVID-19 too. Sena, it is so unfortunate the people of Ghana did not vote for this government. So sometimes, because Ghanaians are tired already. We are tired, as the health minister said. When the COVID-19 came in, he said he was tired. The president is tired. Everybody was tired. And now, look at what we have at hand again. Then, even our medical professionals can't study the new variants properly and even give us the real symptoms. Some are saying it can attack your waist. This one, it is not the normal, like the flu or maybe you'll be coughing. This one has, it has really spread its tentacles to understand that the help of the professionals who are supposed to handle it, they don't even have enough idea. So you can imagine me, a lay person, who has no idea about medicine and whatever. Sena, so you can't even, if you are trying to even prevent it, you don't even know the symptoms to prevent it, which is very, very dangerous. Meanwhile, we have paid people as watchmen to watch the airport for us so that we don't import such variants into this country. And they are comfortably here with us. And nobody is taking responsibility for this. Nobody, Sena, not the president, not advice, not the, nobody. Everybody is normal, and the president has re-selected those people again to come to us and work again as health ministers and the rest. Because he was comfortable with them. They made money with COVID-19 at the airport. So they should come and continue. Other than that, this, I'm not aware, I don't know about it. It doesn't make sense. Mr. President, if Ghana was to be his own company, limited liability company that he has used his hard-earned money to set up, and the health minister was his managing director, and there is a crisis and you who are in charge, you come to me and tell me you are not aware, would that person be sitting there by now? But what do we see? This is Ghana. They are in to make money. Their fathers made money and left for them 60 years ago, so they are also here to come and continue. Nobody is taking responsibility for anything. Nobody is in charge. Everybody feels that this is our time. You meet their communicators and they don't even understand what is going on. They have been programmed. Like their vice president, they have been programmed. Whether the thing is blue or red, just say it is white. And they are just moving like that. All of their people have been programmed. They will be telling lies with so much confidence because that is what they have been asked to do. How can these few family and friends people put our lives at risk? Over 30 million Ghanaians. Doctors have been advising. Then you come and tell us you are working with data and science. Science and data. You knew you were going to open the airports, yet you couldn't put measures in place. All you are interested in is to bring your friends to come and do business, then you share the money. You were reopening schools. You knew that schools were going to be open. You didn't send PPEs ahead of time, sanitizers, nothing. So now there is no education. As doctor said, who is even telling us how many hours you are comfortable to wear nose masks? Because the last time I heard Dr. Dakeward Mills preaching to his congregants that you don't have to wear nose masks for some more than a certain period of time because you'll be inhaling carbon dioxide. Who is teaching our children? Who is even educating us, we the adults? How many hours you're supposed to wear a nose mask? Nobody is telling us anything. COVID-19 came and the Kojo Nkrumah was eventually doing a reality show with it. You won't hear any adverts, not in any different languages for our people to appreciate and understand. You only see him talking. They think that they are still in their campaign mood and everything is about reality show. Catch the audience before they change their channel. This is governance. For goodness sake, we are not campaigning anymore, Mr. President. This is governance. You have the destiny of all of us in your hands. We have given you the power to rule. Sena, this government was in power 4 years ago. We had COVID-19. He freely brought it and accepted it. And we are here. There's a new variant. Sena, we don't know what's going to happen to us next year. Because these people are just careless, very clueless, and very heartless too. If it's not about them, I mean, a finance minister is flown out of the country because he had complications after COVID. Sena, what would have happened to me if I also had the same complications after COVID and what it is required for me to get well is not in this country?
You will die.
And they don't care because I am not an Oforiata. Sena, I am not an Oforiata. So I should die for my family to lose whatever. After all, nobody cares. And he is flown out of the country. I wish him well. And I pray that he will be able to see whatever equipment they are using on him. So when he comes, quickly procure and get us those machines at the University of Ghana Medical Center. Because we are all human beings. Our blood is as red as his. Nobody has a blue-colored blood and others are having green and yellow. What kind of a country is this? It is the democracy we built that for family and friends, even in the midst of a pandemic, people are still self-centered. Thinking about how they can make money. What shall it profit a man? Sena, when you lose your soul and you get all these things, where will you take them to? Where will you take them to? If we could use money to get healing, why will people be flown out of this country? Could have just sent your money to do something for you. Then you get well, then you go about doing your normal business. Money is not everything, Mr. President. In politics or in governance, your main concern is the people. It is the people. The people's business should be your business. There is no publicity. Even with the first variant, a lot of people are not aware of it. And now we are visited with something else, which its symptoms you can't clearly define. All that we could say is our people should take good care of themselves. When you are going to work, at least take more than 2 nose masks so that you can be changing them, because other doctors are saying you can't be inhaling carbon dioxide frequently. It can also kill you. When you are at a place where you realize there's so much space and no one is there, you can remove it a while and be moving around. When you are going back into where people are, then you put it on. Those of us who are used to an air-conditioned room, air-conditioned cars, let's roll the glasses down a little bit. Let the sunshine come into. Let's get the vitamin D, the vitamin C, and the zinc tablets the doctors have been recommending. I have few friends that got COVID, and even just yesterday, one went, and the result is back that she's negative. Thanks be to God. And these are the things that they use. And the steam bath. Those of us who can afford the 35 cedis vitamin C, you can use lemon and then ginger. The ginger is the zinc, then the lemon or the lime, you get the vitamin C in it. So now, this is what we should do to help ourselves. Because as for this government, if everyone dies and he and his family members are only in Ghana and he's still a president, I think he's very comfortable with it. Parents that are in school, let's make sure that our kids go to school at least with 3 nose masks. The one that he or she wears or they wear from the house, maybe during lunch, the child can change it. Then closing time, she changes it into another one so that they don't inhale the carbon dioxide that other medical professionals are saying it's not also good for our health. Let's try and share the little information that we have to save lives and help our people. As Doc said, the information is limited. Even with this new vaccine, they are saying they are going to look at the vulnerables. And honestly, with COVID-19, I don't know who is more vulnerable than the other. Because if you give Dr. Clement Apak, because he's an MP, today he's sitting here with me, I don't have the vaccine. So what happens? When he goes home, his domestic staff doesn't have the vaccine. So we are virtually, it's a cost-90 job we are doing. The president or the government should think. We are paying Anabi should think and give us solutions. If it's going to be district-based, regional-based, whatever, it should, the proper things, because you can't immune someone and then the next person closer to him or her can be COVID prone. At the end of the day, what have you done? And those that get the vaccine, what is the probability that when you receive the vaccine, you won't get the COVID at all, or it's going to minimize it, or when you get it because of the vaccine, you won't die? Those that their immune system are strong, those that have recovered, are they still going to take the vaccine? We need a lot of information. Has the vaccine been tested? Yesterday, I heard the Minister for Information and I think the health professor, the one in charge, the government advisor on health issues or something. They were saying, Is here side that the vaccines are potent and whatever is not because others have certain reservations? Has it been tested? They should communicate to us. Where? In Ghana, who tested it? The health minister, the minister for information, does he have an experience? They should be tested first. They should take them first and they should share the experience with us. You can't risk all of us, our lives. I mean, there should be tests, proper laboratory tests. Even the Frontier Healthcare Company or whatever at the airport, there is nowhere in this world that they have any track record of laboratory tests. So how can you put these people in charge of testing? And today, we are here with another variant. Sena, the MPP has failed. They have failed. I don't know what definition I can give this government. But at least, a nation that is not healthy, you can never be productive. Nanado promised us 88 district hospitals. And today, we are hearing that it was a vision.
Actually, they say it's now 111. 111 from the 88.
Even one, you've not done it. And now they are saying it was a vision. So anybody can go and sleep and get a vision and come and tell Ghanaians.
Yeah, I can go and drink buku too, and then I can go
and tell us. Now when you are supposed to be. And this vision, it was time bound. He said within 1 year. Oh, Sena, Ghanaians, we have suffered though. We have really suffered. And these people should listen to reason and save our lives. And save our lives for once, if for nothing at all. As for health issues, Nana, build the hospitals. You promised us. Nobody forced you. It was in the NDC manifesto that we're going to build new hospitals at the newly created regions. Oh, he jumped at it again. Yet nothing is done. And I heard the health minister designate was blaming the chiefs for not giving them. So when Nana was seeing the vision, he didn't see the need in consulting the chiefs and staff and to get lands and all that for the work. He is not serious. Sena, in simple terms, Nanado is not a serious person. He is not. They want to make money out of everything, including a pandemic. COVID-19 is now a connection man for the MPP government. Ghanaians, please, let's take good care of ourselves. If you are not supposed to go out to do anything very important, please stay at home. The virus moves as we move. Let's take good care of ourselves. Let's stop the hugging, the shaking of hands, crowded places and all that. And let's hope maybe Providence will protect us. Whilst we are also trying to keep ourselves clean and follow the protocols that have been put in place. Wearing of nose masks, washing of hands with soap and water, then social distancing. And let's see. Because as I sit here, Sena, I don't see how this government can solve this problem. I don't. I don't want to sound too political, but with the Nanado that I know and his track record, Nana can't do anything about this.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A couple of your messages before I go to Mr. Pratt. Osman Elisha is saying a good morning. The issue of COVID, government has failed. Can you imagine there are schools without PPEs? I've gone to some schools and I have evidence. He says, Elizabeth Joyce Akolo says, the government thought the virus would go after a year, so they decided to share. Okay, but it is now spreading more. They cannot manage the virus. Arnold Deep Sky Doji says, I believe our leaders use the COVID-19 virus money for election. So they want the virus to spread more so that they can borrow more. Ghana is bleeding now. God save us all. But we need to apply wisdom in dealing with COVID-19. You say, okay. Some more of your messages, a lot more on other issues. Mr. Pratt, please.
Well, a number of very important organizations engaged in the fight against COVID-19 have made statements that we cannot ignore. Within the last 2 weeks, the Ghana Medical Association has issued at least 2 statements. 2 very revealing statements. Yesterday, I also read a statement issued by the Ghana Registered Nurses Association, a statement attributed to their public relations officer. The Concerned Teachers Association has also made a statement which is exceedingly interesting. There are a number of others, but it's important also to recognize that in the course of the last 2 weeks, government itself has been making statements on the fight against COVID-19, and that all of these statements need to be carefully examined. The Ghana Medical Association has made it clear that the decision to reopen schools is reckless and is likely to lead to exacerbating the situation, causing more death and so on, and has persistently been advising government to, as a matter of urgency, close down the schools. It has also told government in plain language that we need to start vigorous contact tracing. It has also recommended that we need to take action in order to start random mass testing and so on. The Ghana Medical Association has also expressed concern about the lack of PPEs in the hospitals. Now, this is the Ghana Medical Association. This is not the Ghana Journalists Association. This is not the Socialist Forum of Ghana. This is not the Convention People's Party. This is the Ghana Medical Association, which must necessarily be in the front line of the struggle against COVID-19, and which will be providing us with sound technical advice on how to fight COVID-19. They have spoken. Now, there is a young doctor who is one of those in charge of the management of COVID-19 at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, the Ridge Hospital, who has also spoken and has indicated that one of the problems that they have is simply the inadequate supply of oxygen. And I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, oxygen? What does it take to produce oxygen? Mind you, we are in February 2021. Only yesterday, there was a report that man has finally landed a robotic engine on Mars. As we sit here, Nigeria is in space. You understand? And we cannot produce oxygen. I mean, what is the raw material for the production of oxygen? Just the air we breathe, which is available to everybody. The air we breathe has about 70% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, and so on. And all we do to produce oxygen is to separate nitrogen and other gases from oxygen and get 100% concentration of oxygen for use by patients. And in Ghana, we cannot do that. So all the noise we have been making about the status of Ghana in Africa and the world and so on, if we cannot produce oxygen, what the hell is happening in our country? And people are dying because we cannot give them oxygen. It's incredible. Now, this young doctor also goes on to disclose that the Ridge Hospital, which is a dedicated hospital for the management of COVID-19 cases, has a total of only 32 beds. 32 beds. We're not talking of some clinic in some suburb of Accra and so on. We are talking about, in terms of hierarchy, in the Greater Accra region, the second best hospital in the Greater Accra region. It has only 32 dedicated beds for the management of COVID-19 cases. I'm completely scandalized. Yesterday, there were reports that the Konfanochi Hospital has less than 10 dedicated beds for the management of COVID-19 cases. This is how serious we are in the confrontation with COVID-19. Then the doctors are telling us again that you need to have dedicated outpatients departments for the management of COVID-19 cases. There is no hospital in Ghana, the whole of Ghana, which has a dedicated OPD for the management of COVID-19 cases. And what does it take to have a dedicated OPD for the management of COVID-19 cases? What does it take? We can simply erect a tent or tents to serve as OPDs for the management of COVID-19 cases. And what does it take to erect a tent? Indeed, if you travel around the world, if you go to those so-called advanced countries, and I mean so-called advanced countries, you would find that they are beginning to use tents because they recognize that in this situation, in the midst of the pandemic, resources are scarce. Even where resources are available, we cannot be building huge concrete structures and so on to take care of these cases. So common sense, ordinary common sense dictates that we apply emergency measures. And applying emergency measures, the use of tents should come in handy. You understand? Just this morning when I was leaving the house, somebody I knew called and said his father had died. And then the father tested positive for COVID-19. He was declared recovered and came home. And after 1 week, developed some complications, was taken to the hospital yesterday and died this morning. And the question I ask myself is, how would this death be classified? Because I heard a member of the Ghana Medical Association discussing this problem of classification and saying that in many instances, doctors were advised to classify those who die from underlying conditions as a result of COVID-19 as not having died from COVID-19, but the underlying conditions. You understand? Now, if you have a situation like that, then we are understating the number of deaths from COVID-19. Deliberate policy of understating the number of deaths from COVID-19. If I am asthmatic, I've been asthmatic for 10 years. I jump into a car, and I'm driving, and I crash the car. I die in an accident. I get into an accident. How would you classify that there? Would it be the result of the accident, of the underlying condition of asthma, and so on? So even how we classify deaths can lead to understating the incidence of death from COVID-19. And we're doing that. We're doing that to our own detriment. And we're doing that to our own detriment because if we do not know the exact extent of COVID-19 and so on, it will inform policy. The lack of knowledge would inform policy. The lack of knowledge would lead to wrong prescriptions in the battle against COVID-19. Right now, all manner of figures are being bandied around, okay? Now, it is important for us to ask ourselves, how do we come by these figures? Right now, if you do not display symptoms, if you are asymptomatic, the likelihood of you getting a test are next to zero. The likelihood of you getting a test are next to zero. The science of COVID-19 teaches us that the vast majority of those who are infected are asymptomatic. So if you have a situation where only those with symptoms are being tested, it is clear that when you're told that 5 people have it, you probably have to multiply 5 by 10 in order to get a fair idea of where we are. Indeed, there's a friend of mine who says that don't multiply by 10, multiply by 100. Now, we are listening to the doctors, we are listening to the nurses, we are listening to the midwives and so on. And they are telling us that they, the frontline workers, do not have adequate supply of PPEs. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association is clear. It says they do not have adequate supply of PPEs. Now, this has serious implications. If the frontline workers are not protected from the virus, how can they take care of us? It becomes dangerous for us even to go into the hospitals, because the hospitals themselves can become breeding grounds and so on. Because the frontline workers do not have protection. What is it that these frontline workers need that we cannot provide? Face masks, water, soap, sanitizers, and protective clothing. That's all they need. And indeed, if you look at the number of frontline workers, doctors and nurses who have been infected in this period, it is exceedingly shocking and frightening. Shocking and frightening, you understand? Now, a number of things have happened that must be exceedingly worrying, for all of us. And one of the things which has happened, which should be exceedingly worrying for all of us, is the decision to open schools. What schools have we opened? We have opened day nurseries or crashes where 18-month-olds go to school. 18 months, not 2 years, 18-month-old babies. We said that 18-month-olds should go to school. First of all, those 18-month-old, what is it that they are learning which is so crucial that they must risk death in order to be able to learn? What are they learning? They are actually learning useless rhymes which alienate them from our society. These kids are going to the nurseries and learning to sing songs like London's Burning, Lukuyonda, Fire, fire, no water. Learning this rhyme is so important for Ghana that 18-month-olds should risk their lives in order to learn these useless rhymes, which alienate the children from their culture and so on. It's unbelievable. Now, my colleagues have already spoken about some situations, and I just want to repeat them for emphasis. You have the Parliament of Ghana. Parliament of Ghana. And Dr. Apak is a member of the Parliament of Ghana. You have Osei Mensah Bonsu, member of that parliament. You have Haruna Idrisu, member of that parliament. Many, many more names, Atachia and so on. They're all on that parliament. Some of them in parliament are actually ministers and deputy ministers. There are some people in parliament who have been entrusted with the management of parastatals. They are retired teachers and so on. Distinguished medical practitioners and so on. They're all in parliament. And we have come to the conclusion that these people, we can't trust them with COVID-19. We can't trust them. We cannot be sure that they will follow all the protocols. We cannot be sure. And because we cannot trust them with COVID-19, we cannot be sure that they will follow all the protocols. Let's close Parliament for 3 weeks. We have made that decision. So we have closed Parliament for 3 weeks. But we are saying that 18-month-olds can manage themselves better and follow protocols, so they should go to school. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. My goodness, that is how smart our leaders are. 18-month-olds can look after themselves. So let them go to school. But adults, responsible adults in parliament, you cannot trust them with the protocols and so on. So they should go home for 3 weeks. And then we are being told that the education of the children is so very crucial, so very important, that we should not disrupt it. Even at the risk of death, send them to school. Even at the risk of death, send them to school. And I'm listening, and I'm watching, and I'm seeing the very same people who justified the traffic light system of education saying these things. When it came to running a ship system which made children stay at home for 3 months and more and so on, they did not raise the issue of how important education is and why it is necessary to keep children, in school. It was convenient for them to argue that keeping children at home for 3 months is okay. But when it comes to fighting COVID-19, instruction for children in schools is so very important that push them to go and die. Can't believe this logic. I can't believe this double standards and so on. I can't believe it. But this is what we are faced with. I think it's important in discussing this issue of the reopening of schools and so on, to look at our current situation with regards to education. I mean, Dr. Clement Park has spoken about the space available, space, and its impact on the control of COVID-19. And he has spoken about known cases of 80 pupils or students sitting in one classroom, which makes social distancing impossible. But that is an understatement. Because I've read reports of one school in which you have 120 pupils in one classroom. 120 pupils in one classroom. How do you maintain social distance in classrooms of this nature and so on? Unless our health and educational managers are not aware of this fact. And if they are not aware of this fact, why are they there? What are they managing? And so on. Now, we have said that we are relying on teachers and managers of educational institutions to provide guidance, to assist the children to observe the protocols and so on. Again, what are the figures available to us? What is our concrete reality? Our concrete reality is that if you go to some of the schools, you have one teacher to 100 or more pupils and students. How can they manage to provide appropriate guidance? One teacher to 100, sometimes more students. How can they provide appropriate guidance? It is simply impossible. You understand? Absolutely impossible. And we need to think, about what to do in order to avert this situation. Now, in the course of the week, one of the Anglican bishops actually made a passionate plea to government to close down the basic schools. Now, that passionate plea is instructive in many ways. For me, one of the ways in which it is instructive is that some of our leaders have been telling us that, God is in control. You understand? And as far as Ghana is concerned, Ghana is a God-loving country and so on. And God will protect us, and therefore we should pray and so on. First of all, these kinds of statements are most unfair to God. Most unfair to God. Because these kinds of statements portray God as a very biased God. God is not protecting Brazilians. They're dying in their hundreds of thousands. God is not protecting Americans who are dying in their hundreds of thousands and so on. But Ghana is special for God. So God will protect Ghana and will not protect Brazil and will not protect the United States of America. Why do you do this to your God? Why do you portray your God as a biased God? As a God who is not fair? As a God who discriminates against Brazilians? As a God who discriminates against Filipinos? As a God who is discriminating against citizens of the United States of America? Indeed, if I were God, I'd be very, very angry with these officials. Because these officials are very unfair to God. Exceedingly unfair to God. But you see, this statement by an Anglican bishop is instructive. It's instructive to the extent that the clergy itself realizes that the way to fight COVID-19 is not through prayer and fasting, but concrete science, the application of concrete science and so on. You saw the footage on the funeral arrangements for our former head of state. You saw the footage, for our former head of state, His Excellency Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. You saw it. For me, the most interesting part of that footage was when I saw another archbishop wearing double face masks. I'm sure that archbishop prayed in the morning before he went to the funeral and was likely to pray after the funeral. And yet, this archbishop found it prudent, found it sensible to wear double face masks. Double, not one, double, 2 face masks. So look, I fully agree. That we should allow science to lead us. We should allow science to lead us. That's the only way out of this quagmire and so on. Master, you know, this is a serious matter. This is a matter we ought to be taking seriously. And I insist that we ought to be taking this seriously because of what is happening. I hold in my hand Daily Guide newspaper. The Daily Guide newspaper has a headline which is most instructive. This is the Daily Guide newspaper with a headline which simply says, COVID on a... Alright? Yes, certainly COVID is on a killing spree. In the initial stages, if you heard about somebody who had died from COVID and so on, you didn't know that person. Far away. You heard about people who had been infected by COVID, they were far away, you didn't know them and so on. Today, I don't think that there's any Ghanaian who doesn't know somebody who has died from COVID or has been infected by COVID. Master, it is either your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, or your neighbor. That is how serious the situation has become. COVID, as Daily Guide says, is on a killing spree. That killing spree is so close to us. The killer is in our homes. The killer is in our workplaces. The killer is even in our hospitals and clinics and so on. The killer is everywhere. Now, somebody has said something which people like to quote. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to quote it correctly. I'm told that this is attributed to Albert Einstein, who says that doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is madness. It's crazy. We have done the same things over and over and over. The disease is spreading and spreading and spreading. Isn't it time for us to pause and to begin to think about other ways of doing things to avoid the label that Einstein places on those who do the same things over and over and expect different results? I think the time has come to halt, to ponder, to begin to ask important questions and so on. And indeed, one of the most important questions has already been asked by my colleagues. How did we get the British strand of the disease in Ghana if indeed in opening our airports we took the correct steps, we took prudent management steps and so on to prevent the importation of the disease? How come that we have the British strand? Now, yesterday, something very... choice of words, sometimes choice of words is a very difficult proposition. But yesterday, something happened. Yesterday, something happened which I've been reflecting on, and I'm not so sure how to describe it. the minister designate for information summoned so-called stakeholders to indeed what would amount to a jamboree and told us how we are going to vaccinate 20 million people. I'm sure you all heard it. Master, as we speak, we don't have one vial of vaccine in Ghana. Not one. We don't have one vial of vaccine in Ghana. And yet, we are fantasizing about how we are going to vaccinate 20 million people, not 20 people, not 10,000 people, not 50,000 people, not 1 million people, 20 million people. And you don't have one vial in the country. What is this? Let us go back to the South African example. The South Africans actually found the resources, they placed the order, and they began receiving vaccines, only to realize that through the process of mutation of the virus, the vaccines they had imported could not provide security, protection for their people because of the capacity of the virus to mutate. They now found out that the virus they were dealing with was not the original virus which they found in Wuhan, or even the British variant, and therefore importing the virus from the virus which had been discovered by Oxford University would not work. They had to change and so on. But yesterday, our minister designate for information was telling us that, the virus they will bring in the future, not the virus they have brought to.
Yeah, the vaccine.
Thank you, sir. The vaccine they will bring in the future, the vaccine they will bring in the future, not the vaccine they have brought already, is so good, its efficacy level is so high. How can he know? What is the science? A couple of weeks ago, we were dealing with the original virus. Now we are dealing with the British variant. And given the capacity of the virus to mutate, I'm sure that in the next couple of weeks we'll not be talking about the British variant, but we'll be talking about a variant which has characteristics has distinguished Ghanaian characteristics.
This is the one mutating from the Doninga variant. Anything is possible.
You understand? So where is the science which is leading us in the fight against COVID-19 and so on? Yesterday, I pulled out some figures. And they are interesting figures. I'm not going to use them today, But interesting figures which showed the impact of the spread of COVID-19 on housing, on public infrastructure, on transport, and so on and so forth. And it is frightening. Even these fake figures we are dealing with suggest that in some sectors of industry and social life and so on, the decline is as much as 48%. That's the decline. 48% and more and so on. You understand? So if you do not take adequate, prudent, and scientific measures today, what will happen to us by December? What will happen to us by December and so on? I am very, very deeply worried about the escalating situation. And I think it is important that we rise above petty party propaganda. I think it's absolutely important that we rise above pettiness and propaganda and to confront the reality of our situation. And in doing so, I think it is most prudent to follow the advice of the Ghana Medical Association. I think it is most prudent to follow the advice of the Ghana Nurses and Registered Nurses Association. I think it is our own collective interest to listen to the managers of educational institutions when it comes to reopening schools. I think it's in our collective interest to stop this hanky-panky Nancy games that we are playing with ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pat. Faisal has joined us. Before I come to him, let me just do a few of the comments you'll be sending to us on what we are discussing currently. Well, Charles Thompson is saying the variant or strain was brought into the country by people who traveled to the country for Christmas. You say, Socrates Zero says individual responsibility and treating everyone as a suspect. A suspected COVID-19 patient is the only way out. A few more of your messages. Patrice John Kofi says, how can we live in a country where nobody is responsible for anything? Yaya Yao says, common sense is what Ghana lacks. Even our, okay, where you are taking me to. Rasmokando says, the better you lie, the more you are liked, and giving more shady contracts. God help Ghana. You say, Kwesi Mensa says, Nanado and his administration are doing business with COVID. Exactly. They couldn't account for those monies to Ghanaians. So those are some of the messages you've been sending to us. I'll go to Faisal now, but let me say a big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. They are our radio partners here in the Greater Accra region. Faisal, wonderful to see you and good morning to you.
By starting from where Sena, or let me say Comrade Kwesi Pratt left off, except to take a more hopeful path than the path that I understood he was telling us. Yesterday, the event that took place was part of the direction that the president gave the last time he addressed Ghanaians. He told Ghanaians the steps that the government was going to take as far as the procurement of the vaccines are concerned. And it's important to state that these are products that are not easily available, and the whole world, I mean, the first, second, them, everybody is out there looking at this product. So the pressure to obtain these for even advanced country is very high. And Ghana, for that matter, we've taken steps to procure those products, those essential life-saving and COVID preventive products. And it was important that before these products arrive, and maybe at this juncture, it's important for me to state that the first 350,000 doses are supposed to come in tomorrow, next week, sorry. And this is part of the information that was given out yesterday at the event. So the event is part of Akufo-Addo's proper planning, public engagement strategy to let the public be informed. And it's also important that we remind ourselves of the many conspiracy theorists that have taken over all over social media and our information space regarding what these vaccines are and who is behind it and why some rich men in somewhere are looking at using it to kill Africans and all those things. So it was necessary for the public to be engaged, to be informed about the steps that the government is taking. And as we have learned from the scientists, the vaccines are actually one of the most critical interventions that any government can supply to its citizen. Now, this is a medicine, if you like, that looks at preventing all the negative effects of COVID when it enters your system. For those who have a very strong immune system, even when the virus enters you, your immune system is able to produce antibodies that is able to fight this virus, so that the effect of difficulty in breathing and all those, you're able to withstand it. So this vaccine is supposed to be introduced into your system so that it boosts your immune system, so that when the time, in case you come into contact with the virus, you will not have all the effects, the negative effects that the virus comes with. So yesterday, I think that event was timely because it is part of a broader plan to introduce the vaccine into the country. We had officials from the Ghana Health Service, we had officials from scientific organizations who came in to give a lecture and allay the fears of Ghanaians. In fact, yesterday I got to know that we've introduced vaccines into our system since 1978, if I'm not mistaken. Then the disease of what we call polio, measles, meningitis, and all this. We have yellow fever. These are all diseases that it is through vaccine that we are able to fight them. So the opportunity yesterday was to educate all of us that this vaccine that is going to come in beginning next week, 350,000 of which, the doses of which is going to come in, is nothing new. It's something we've been used to. In fact, today, let me say before COVID, if you're going to travel outside the country, you had to produce a yellow card. And the yellow card is basically going to take the shot. If you get the shot, you're given the yellow card before you travel. And from the way things are looking, when the vaccine is able to, when countries are able to deploy it and inject many of their citizens, I'm certain that vaccine card for COVID is not going to be a requirement for anybody who wants to travel. Because whichever country you are going, the country will be expecting that you must have the card, just as we do for yellow card. So the event that took place yesterday for me was important that it came about. I followed to a very good extent, and so at least it allayed some fears that I had. And I'm happy that Sena mentioned that this COVID matter, as also reported by Daily Guide, is on a killing spree. It's killing virtually every kind of person. Today, I also know people who have been infected and some who have died. And the fact must be said that we let our guards down. We let our guards down because when it came in first and the numbers were rising, we had to enforce some measures. The president ordered for some restrictions here and there. Parties, conferences, bars to be closed down, beaches to be closed down, and the like. But all of us will admit that in December, I have a friend who told me specifically that he let his guard down in December because friends had come in from US and the UK, and because we've been home for so long, the lockdown and the rest, they thought it was time for them to enjoy. Unfortunately, that is where we have seen these figures rise again. But the figures as at this morning that I saw, it's come down to 6,500. I don't have any means of knowing a contrary figure. If I believed it when it was going up, I might as well believe it that when it's going down. The death rates are going up. As of yesterday, I was told that about 19 people had died, new death. So clearly we are having more fatalities now than we had before because of the new strain. But the good news in there also is that the numbers are going down regarding the infection. And it could be because of the new restrictions that the president has also introduced again, restricting all kinds of things that we do, because we know that the virus doesn't move by itself, it moves with human beings. So where there are more interactions, where people are meeting and people are not using wearing the nose mask, then the risk goes up. In the same vein, yesterday we also got a report from the Ghana Health Service that now the number of people using the mask has also increased. And by that showing, it's reflected in also the numbers going down, which for me is a good thing. And it's important to also add that wearing of the nose mask has been one of the most potent things anybody can do in any country. Even for former President Trump, who initially was not supporting the idea, eventually came to buy the idea that wearing of the nose mask is one of the most important things to do. This was at the time that we didn't have any vaccine. And the wearing of the nose mask became the most important thing. And I have said on some platforms that today, for anybody watching, the politics will do, but your health first is your personal responsibility. Regard the nose mask like wearing trousers to cover your manhood or womanhood. Don't step out without it. And I believe that if we all speak and people listen to us and they cover, then we all are working towards ensuring that the numbers go down. It's just a piece of cloth or a piece of material to cover your nose and you are still able to breathe. Even though breathing is more difficult now, if, like someone said, breathing through the nose mask is better than using a ventilator, which means that you can't breathe and you have to force a machine through you for oxygen to enter you. So the discomfort that you face when you are wearing a nose mask cannot compare to being on a ventilator. Now, it's also important for me to state again. I made some notes when I was watching the program yesterday, so I kindly like to refer to it. Yeah. So figures I was given yesterday, for instance, regarding the safety, because there were some factors that the Ghana Health Service had to consider in bringing in the vaccine. We have less than 10 vaccines so far globally. And from what I gathered yesterday, FDA in Ghana has approved AstraZeneca and then Sputnik V as the two vaccines that are going to come in. AstraZeneca is from India, and so far the literature shows that it is a potent one. And the Sputnik, yes.
That's from the UK.
Is it from India or it's from Oxford?
No, India. India.
That's from the UK.
It's from the UK.
Producing it in
India, yeah.
But it's from
but
the
it was developed
In Oxford.
In Oxford.
Okay. So this one is the one coming from India, from the updates from the officials yesterday. And Sputnik is Sputnik V is from Russia. And it's important that at least I put out the factors that the officials indicated that they considered. One of it is safety. And it's a legitimate matter everybody is concerned about. Is it going to be a vaccine that will be introduced into your system and you're going to have some negative, repercussion? And so they considered safety, they considered efficacy, they considered the formulation. Is it the liquid formula we are going in for or the powdered one? They considered the storage system. They considered cost, which is also another important matter. Then lastly, they also considered ensuring that the FDA approves before it is used. So these are the factors. And interestingly, I got to know yesterday that over 188 million, as at the 17th of February, 188 million of doses has been used on people across the globe. And from that time to now, the negative effect of the vaccines haven't been anything serious. There are some, of course, you may experience some side effects, but they're just something you can deal with. US, for instance, has vaccinated 56.2 million of its citizens. Israel has done 47% of its population, and across the globe they are number one. And the figures are showing that they are having less, they are recording less figures as a result of this. So I think that we have to be hopeful. Yes, it's a disease that is in, it's a virus that is in, that is worrying all of us. managers of this country are also not sleeping. Sleepless nights, meetings are being held through diplomatic channels and multilateral channels to ensure that we get the vaccines in. And as has been promised through the event yesterday, 350,000 doses are going to come in. They also gave a breakdown or the segment of people who are going to get it. And they began with the health and frontline workers, because they always come in contact with people who have the virus. So it will be necessary for them to be first vaccinated. They mentioned MDAs, they mentioned the legislator, media, farmers, commercial drivers. And with time, the vision is that 20 million Ghanaians should be vaccinated. But this is going to begin by close of this very month. So my message this morning on this matter is that, yes, the virus is serious, it's affecting everybody. We are all concerned. It doesn't matter your background or your creed, but there's good news for us based on what was told to us yesterday. And so let's be hopeful and then support the government with prayer, so that when this comes and is gone, the politics we can all do.
Thank you very much, Faisal. Faisal is ending the discussion on COVID-19 for us this morning. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss the issue of the vetting. That's after this. You're watching the Matter of All Talk Shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI.
He has labored.
Well, Donald Trump lost the election, and he actually incited the people that they should overturn the election. They said it was an insurrection. When it happens in America, it was an insurrection. When it happens in Ghana, may coup. Something similar happened in Ghana. Was that an insurrection, or were they trying a coup? Okay, folks, the idea is to make Ghana television great again. So you can catch this show on Pan-African TV Friday evenings at 9 p.m. And if you miss it, you can grab it on Sundays at 2 p.m. Making entertainment great again.
The KSM Show.
Suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer.
Thank you very much for sticking and staying with us on the Mother of All Talk Shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. It's Pan-African Television, and we are on several other affiliates. A big thank you to China FM and Akachi, and also a big thank you to Benya and Cape FM, both in the Central region, for also tuning in to us live. Thank you all for providing us your platform. Let me just do a couple of your messages, then we'll move on to the issue of the vetting. Are you Farouk in Tamale North? Says good morning, Sena. Okay, indeed, it is quite disturbing the kind of ministers the president presented to the vetting committee to be vetted. Some of them show a dramatic, a disgusting posture that do not merit approval. You say this one is coming from Honorable Mohammed Mutala, assembly member. It says Muhia Bihi. I hope I got that right. It says it sends warm greetings to the hard-working iron lady, Mago. Says the woman I look forward to see in Parliament as a member of Parliament for Zoom constituency. As for COVID-19 development in this 419 government under Nanado, the least we talk of it, the better. What happened to all the monies Ghana had through donations in the name of COVID-19 before the 2020 elections? They should stop boring our ears with Nanado 419 COVID-19 figures. You say, Papa BCU in Accra says, hi Sena, you see how untruthful the leadership of the MPP are. I'm not surprised at all. The Frontiers Corrupt Dubious contract comes to mind. Unaware group of so-called ministers, not surprised at all, because their leader Nanado is always unaware and therefore always misled. A clear example is the Mary Innovation dubious deal. Anyway, information trickling in from cocoa farmers indicate that this government is unable to purchase their cocoa beans because it has no cash, but had cash to waste on unnecessary new voters register. Thank you. Dennis Akwete, we are not serious as a nation about the fight against COVID-19. As I said before, sometimes I wonder whether those in charge sitting in Accra really know what is happening. As I speak from July 2020 to date, the Ilo Krobo Public Health Emergency Committee, through its publicity channel, has not been able to carry out a single community outreach for public education on the observance of the COVID-19 protocols, and money has been cited as a constraint. That is the reality in some areas. Thank you. Tafai Namahia is also joining us. And our president said it is bound to happen, and it is happening. Now our country and culture has been sold to the West. So now with these unanimity decisions that has been taken by some people always, I'm also begging our MPs to unanimously reject all the arrogant, incompetent ministers in retaliation, you say. Sena says, I am appalled that COVID-19 management in Ghana is still being politicized. There are many competent and qualified professionals who can and should be involved in the management of the situation, but have been ignored because they may not necessarily be MPP supporters. Why are we doing this to Mother Ghana and to Ghanaians? Don't we deserve better as Ghanaians? Okay. Seldor Glass says, good morning. Please, can you ask the MPP rep for me which country the vaccine is coming? I think he said that. And you ask, he's also talked about who the vaccines and which of the variants the vaccine is for. I'm not sure he has that much information. Ambassador Sampiali says, tell him, until they stop attributing to the president, we will not solve this